Greg Scheinman, welcome to the show.
Hey, it is great to be here. Thanks for having me, Jon.
Dude, I saw a video earlier where you were opening up about the fact that last night you got up at what, at 3 a.m. to, I don't know, sometime around then, and you woke up with anxiety, you said. Dude, talk to me about this because I have been waking up at 2 or 3 a.m. now, and I'm dealing with this. So I would love for you to tell me, is this new? Has this been going on for a while? What are you doing about it? What are you learning? What's it teaching you?
So it's not new. It's something I've been dealing with for a while. And I say, one of the things I say is that anxiety doesn't go away. I'm not going to graduate from having anxiety or experiencing anxiety. What I'm trying to do is get better at coping with it,
Yeah.
getting better at managing it. And so, yeah, I have those nights, and I don't think I'm alone in this. Like a lot of guys do, husbands, fathers, providers, men, entrepreneur, that I wake up in the middle of the night. And last night was 3:57, in the morning, or actually that's today. So 3:57 in the morning. And I'm stirring. And it's the college tuition that's due and the upcoming trips that we have, that are personal and professional. And I call them problems of prosperity in a lot of ways, because I have nothing to be unhappy about. And I'm grateful for all of it. But we take on a lot. I feel I take on a lot. And that causes anxiety for me.
Yeah.
And I stir. So what I do, now it probably wasn't the best thing to do, this morning was, I didn't want to wake my wife, but I kind of sauntered to the bathroom. I took a leak. I brought my phone with me. I made some notes about what I was going to do today. I happened to see a post on LinkedIn. My friend Scott McGregor from the Outlier Project was talking about him being up, at 4 o'clock in the morning
Of
with
course it fed you that
overwhelming,
article. Those
yeah,
that you're looking
anxiety,
at your
right?
phone
Because
at 3
something's
a.m.
listening in
Yeah.
my house to exactly what's going on. But look, I think to directly answer your question, it's always going to be there for me. I think there are different levels of anxiety at different times. Sometimes things are humming
For sure.
along smoothly and it's much more under control. Other times I'm outside of my routine and things are off. It could be that phone call, could be that email, could be personal, could be professional. All these things are connected and they're in the bucket. And I think I do better with it now. Um, Breath work, saunas, cold plunges, yoga this morning. I've got a lot of things, a number of things that I need to do intentionally to prepare myself for the days, to get through the days, including how many things I do per day, personally and professionally, to kind of keep my anxiety in check, my stress in check, and to keep my bandwidth and my performance at a pretty high level.
You ever do all the things and you're like, it's still not working? Like I did the breath work, I did the yoga, I did meditate, I did take valerian root 1 hour before bed. I did all of it and I'm still getting up at 3.
Absolutely. So one thing that you're talking about there that I think is so spot on is sometimes this over over indexing on course correction, or doing too much, that we think more is the answer. Again, I've got to have a longer morning routine, or I have to have all these things and everything that I do. My greatest success has not come from what I have been doing. It's from what I'm not doing. It's
Yes.
come from subtraction, not addition. And
Yeah.
because too much of a good thing, like the adages, can be not such a
Now
good
you're
thing.
stressed out about doing all the things to reduce stress.
Yeah, I'm not of the hustle and grind mindset anymore. I'm not of the 24/7 sleep when I'm dead, any of that. It's the opposite, man. It's kind of figuring out where all that white space in the middle is, and that the middle is the sweet spot. It's messy, but it's the sweet spot. And what does mastering the middle really look like for me?
I had this experience. Was it now 2 weeks ago? I'm at a Ayurvedic clinic that my buddy owns in Asheville. It's called Sohum, Sohum. Highly recommend it. It was really great experience. And I decided not to check my aura ring while I was there. And for the last couple of years, I've geeked out about the aura ring. I would wake up, it's the first thing I look at, and I'm like, tell me how I did. Tell me how I'm supposed to feel. And it was very helpful, by the way, seeing the effect of alcohol on my sleep and so on. Like that was fascinating to me. But I got to the point where I was so reliant on the ring telling me how I'm feeling that I forgot to put my hand on my heart and actually check in on my body and figure out how do I feel. So I wanted to remove the technology so that I could get back in tune with my own reality and not what somebody else is telling me is going on. Have you experienced something similar?
Absolutely. I'm wearing a Whoop right now. I haven't
Yeah.
done the Aura just because I don't love rings and
Yeah.
with all the stuff that I
Fair enough.
do. I think it's a great device. But I take my Whoop off for exactly the same reasons for long periods of time, because you can become reliant or almost obsessed with more. How am I supposed to be feeling? How am I recovering? Again, optimization, maximization, whatever you want to call it. And I struggle again with over indexing in those areas. So I'm more interested right now in again, how can I downshift, if you will? How can I down regulate from
Can you
something? So I
explain
take
that,
it off a
Greg?
lot.
By the way, like, can you just unpack the word indexing and how you're choosing to use that? Why you're using that terminology here?
Yeah, great question. I followed the path for a long period of time that I was gonna grow up and I'm going to go to college and then I'm going to get a job and then I'm going to get married and then I'm going to have kids and I'm going to chase salary and title and all of these things. And it was that hustle grind 24/7. I grew up in New York, all of these different things. And I did find myself, when I say the word over indexing in there, really going to that extreme, really taking that definition of high performance to I think an area where there was greater negatives even than positives that were coming back. And it cost me in certain, I think it cost me in happiness. It cost me in certain areas of success and relationships, even in health. So where I look at it right now is, I think, especially in middle age, and I'm 51, that there's a lot of white space between that kind of sedentary, if you will, lazy, lack of achievement, not where you want to be, and this ultra high performance kind of lifestyle where you're super successful and from the outside looking in, everything looks great and you're working out and you're tracking and you're eating well and you've got your routines and all this. And you find yourself like in either one of them, they're both hard. They're both like really hard.
Yeah.
It gets back to, hey, you know, indexing from one extreme to the next, I found, to be a really slippery slope. You're just kind of rocking back and forth and you never really feel truly centered or truly grounded or accepting and happy with where you are. So when I feel myself indexing in one direction or the other, too much, too little, where am I? What can I do to recenter myself? How can I stay again more balanced and more in the
Yeah.
middle?
Can you give me specific examples or stories of how this works for you? Like where you might have throttled back and experienced a benefit?
Absolutely. And I'm writing about it for this weekend's newsletter in particular about how I am becoming okay with being outworked.
Mm,
I'm looking at a lot of individual businesses, companies, people. They're even at yoga this morning. I was being outworked in that class
mm,
by a number of women that were in it. But I'm getting more comfortable with being okay with being outworked, understanding that, hey, I'm here this morning for a restorative purpose, not to win the yoga class, to be the best at holding this position or doing this thing.
yeah.
So in each one of these areas, I spent the first half of this year, and I was hoping to have it launched by now, Jon, rebuilding our website, complete rebrand, recording 20 new episodes of our podcast. I've had this vision of taking Midlife Male from just a newsletter into a real lifestyle brand and a digital magazine, and I was expecting to be launched by now.
Mm.
Brought in some really like highly compensated A players, if you will, to really help me with this, and for the first time. And sorry if you can hear that; those are my dogs. I don't know, which means
No, I can't hear anything.
okay, good. That just means
By the
Amazon
way,
is
I
here.
wish I could because I think it adds to the texture of the show. But yeah, I
That's
don't
real.
can't
I'm
hear
just
anything.
upstairs in my house, and that means Amazon is here for their daily delivery today. So
Perfect.
they're just greeting him. But where it's going with this is I put a lot of pressure on myself to grow faster and look
Yeah.
at what's happening with this brand or look at what's happening with that guy. And by the way, it's amazing what's happening at Front Row Dads and all these other things. And you can easily start to get into that comparison game
God.
and start
Yeah.
running
I know
other
it
people's
well.
races. Yeah.
I
And I
know it
was like,
well.
what? Okay. Who says I have to launch this in June? Like, who am I really competing with? We'll end up being a 10-year overnight success, if you will. So guess what? 2027 might be the year. Since the
Mm.
very first time I wrote even the words midlife male or started the first blog post was back in 2017. So, this is just more of the stuff that I'm paying attention to right now, that
Yeah.
I designed this kind of life for myself that I've written a lot about and I'm living it. And then I find myself struggling to be content with the fact that I'm getting what I want
Yeah.
because there's a
Yeah.
pressure to do more always.
There's so much, and we could definitely dive into the midlife stuff because what you're doing there is incredible. Listen to your interview with Chip Conley, which was really well done. Um, so anyway, I think that that is fascinating and very relevant for me as I just turned 49 a couple weeks ago. So
Happy birthday and
I,
congrats on all your success and all
thank
the
you, man. I have found that what you were sharing in that show in particular was very relevant to my life right now. And I was doing a lot of head nodding. So,
well, I'm
um,
glad. And I think what's interesting, hopefully there too, is like Chip and I see things very, very differently.
yeah,
And I love this cross section of individuals that are out there that are willing to come on and share their experiences. This is what I really enjoy more than anything. These
yeah,
shared experiences and conversations like this, where, hey, from these conversations, you can aggregate what's being talked about. You curate it down to what really works for you.
absolutely.
What are your takeaways? And then eliminate the stuff that doesn't. So if you grab a minute or two from our conversation here, Jon, you grab a little something from Chip or you see how people see things and live differently, but that it's all okay.
Sure. Let's stick with, if I can, before we close out this whole waking up in the middle of the night thing, because it's still a problem for me. How many nights is this happening to you currently? Like in the last 30 to 60 days, how many nights have you woken up, you know, earlier than you wanted?
Mm. Tends to happen for me about every week or 10 days
That you have one of these nights?
that I have one of these nights in particular where, man, I'm up and I'm struggling to get back to sleep. And there are the sweats and there's the anxiety.
Yes,
It's
totally.
typically middle of the
For
week.
me, it's 6 out of 7 nights.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So
What do you think's
and I'm
triggering
not, and
that?
by the way, I'm not sharing that to one up you or say that my pain's greater than your pain. I'm just telling the truth. That's where I am. Um, but on that note, what have you done things that have helped you improve your sleep? What have you let go of? What have you said no to? How have you
Yep.
eased your mind?
So one thing is I don't drink alcohol
Yeah.
anymore. Now I don't say that.
Zero. Are you 100% off?
So I don't say that I don't drink, nor that I will never drink again. But alcohol has worked its way out of my life.
Good.
So it's been probably I think I've had 2 beers in the last year, maybe.
Wow.
Um, that's made a huge difference in terms of my quality of sleep,
Yeah.
just in terms of how I wake up. And so that's made a huge difference. And I'm not great at meditation, so I really don't do it. I tried it. Uh, I do enjoy breath work. I like box breathing in particular. I like following a pattern, a plan. I'm more like a golden retriever. If you just throw the ball, I'll fetch it and bring it back to you. So I like following that type of routine. I have found that doing my sauna and cold plunge in the evenings has been far more effective than in the mornings
Mm.
for me. So I like going to bed cold. That feels really good getting under
That
the
doesn't
covers.
like get your body all amped up, and it says the opposite, huh?
Not for me.
Yeah.
I'll do 15 in the sauna. I'll do 4 minutes in the cold plunge, rinse off in the shower. And I love getting into bed cold. And I feel like
Yeah.
that that really works for me. Cold bedroom, cold like in there. That has helped a lot. One of the other things that's really helped me a lot is I keep a pad and a pen next to my bed.
Yeah.
And I write down what's on my mind before I go to bed. And I write down what I'm planning to do tomorrow. And What are the things that I'm thinking about? I try to do that every night. That seems to clear a path a lot of the time. So I'm not as scared of what's ahead or thinking that I'm so far behind. Now I wake up and I like, okay, I know I have my plan. I know my 3 personal things that I'm going to do tomorrow. I know my 3 professional things that I'm going to do. And that's my limit. That's my
Yeah.
system through a lot of trial and error that I do 3 personal and 3 professional things per day, period.
Yeah. You know what? I don't know who to credit this to, and I'm sure it's multiple people I could credit, but it's the done list. It's this like I have many times had a to-do list, but I wasn't always great at the end of the day writing all the things that I did accomplish, and I do feel differently when I write down a done list. Here's all the things I was able to make progress on over the course of a day. That's been good for me emotionally. I've enjoyed that. Um, so
I
and
love that.
yes, dude, 2 weeks ago I woke up in the middle of the night and I did exactly that. I brought out a pen, journaled, all the things that were on my mind. And just because I got them out of my mind, I think I was able to sleep better.
I've also started accepting that this is just the way that I'm wired. And that instead of this
There's
being
an
a negative,
acceptance, yeah.
instead of this being a negative thing, that I've got to force myself back to sleep or that I need more sleep to be optimized. And sleep is so important. It's like you could, again, over index on, I got to get all this sleep. I got to get all
Oh,
this sleep. There's so much
absolutely.
pressure on it that you can't, pardon my language, you can't fucking sleep because
Yeah,
all you're doing is thinking about if I don't sleep and everyone's telling me to prioritize sleep and all
right.
this. Now I'm getting anxiety over the sleep, but accepting the fact that this is just how I'm wired and, seeing it as a gift that I get some of my greatest ideas in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And some of the greatest thoughts or the things that I've put out there that have landed the best or that have even made me feel my best have happened in the middle of the night when I've just captured it, as opposed to forcing myself, I better get back to sleep or don't write that down or don't stay up for a few minutes. And I am able now to get back to bed. So it was from 3:57 to call it 4:30 this morning. And fortunately, I don't have to wake up at a certain time to be at a certain place. So I was able to sleep again, get back to sleep until 8 o'clock,
Yeah.
8:15. And
Yeah.
cumulatively, I did okay for the night if you're checking this stuff. But I don't really check it religiously anymore for the same reasons that you were describing.
I know we're talking about eliminating things. Are there things that you've added in that have helped? Is there any type of supplement that you've taken or, you know,
Yeah, so one
add on,
addition,
right?
yeah, addition by subtraction. The first thing is when you start stripping away things, it opens up a tremendous amount of space to try some new things and again determine what works and what doesn't. And the first thing that I was really grateful for and that I was pulling some things out to open up some space to actually have capacity and bandwidth to try some other things because again,
Makes sense.
more and overscheduled wasn't the answer and really wasn't working in all of these good things. So the biggest thing is leaving open space and being okay with that. I'm not replacing 15 things with 15 things. So it's been streamlined. I've tried melatonin. I have tried various sleep aids. I don't love them. I will tell you that I happen to like some THC. I think that works. And I love these little
Particular
cannons.
dosage? How much?
Very microdose. Like I like this product called
Oh,
CANN.
dude, yeah, of course. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's in my fridge downstairs.
Yeah. And I mean,
They
I
gotta be
love,
killing it, by the way.
oh, I'm sure they're killing it. This is not sponsored. I have no arrangement with Can, at all. But, I'll go for a walk with my dogs at 7, 8 o'clock at night and I'll drink one of those and it relaxes me. It's a very
Yeah.
small dose, So, once or twice a week, I'll do that. I lean into giving myself a little bit what I want. I have dessert all the time now. Like I really enjoy having dessert. I'm not a crazy sweets person, but I'm not fanatical about not eating after a certain
Mm,
hour anymore or laying off of this. No. We bought a great ice cream maker. My wife makes this amazing, like it's super healthy ice cream, and I'm just enjoying having desserts more often and just being
yeah.
overall kind of kinder, kind of kinder to
Yes. Dude, have you watched the Blue Zone docu series that's out? Dan Boutonniere did it. I think it might be on Netflix or I'm not sure where, but have you
a
seen
little
that?
bit. I didn't finish it. I've been in and out on that, but I've been around Dan and known, what Dan does for a while now.
Yeah. Great dude. I think we'll have him on the show later this fall or maybe early next year. I'm a big fan. My band, which is we call our small groups in Front Row Dads bands, and our band is called Blue Zone. That's our name, our band name. And dude, I think one of the biggest takeaways from that docu-series for me was just joy. Like you go, whoa, some of that's working because they're just like having a good time.
Listen, I completely agree.
Those
I'm
those
not
guys have
wired for
literally got it figured out. And they're just dancing, having a little wine on the weekends if they want, and then, walking up and down the hills of their, coastal village, eating good food, laughing with friends. None of it seems like rocket science.
No, it's not. And look, I'll say something. I don't know if I've said this anywhere else before or not, but like I'm not particularly wired for joy, for happiness.
Why do you
I
say
gotta,
that?
I gotta work hard for that. I question a lot of things.
Hmm.
Um, so appreciation, gratitude, waking up happy versus worried, in there. Um, those things are hard for me. Like
By
they're
your nature or maybe by your upbringing, a little bit of all of it?
I think a little bit of both. I think
Yeah.
I think both. That I've got a buddy of mine. He's one of the best keynote speakers in the world, and he talks about doing everything with love. And all. Like, man, like that's tough for me to swallow a little
Mm.
bit. Not that I'm not kind or loving, but I'm like, I don't know if I do things naturally, kind of like with love now. Like, what about with grit? What about with a chip on your shoulder? What about, with a little angst, with a little aggression, with a little anger, with a little like resentment for the hand that I've been dealt over certain things? Like, I still carry a lot of that. So I put a lot of emphasis in a lot of what I do for myself now is to try to be more joyful, try to be happier in a way, try to be more appreciative. Um, I tend to run pretty hot, so for me to try to dial it the other way is really important.
Is that
So
hard on your family, Greg?
I'm sorry.
Is that hard on your family?
Yeah, I think so, or sort of, I know so. Um, I'm not the easiest to live with or to be around in a lot. And I put a lot out there also. That's been a struggle in my family. That's very new. What I do now is very different from before. There's a line also between how much I put out there or should put out there because it has an effect on my sons. My boys are 20 and 17. My wife and I have been together almost 25 years. The last few years of me writing a book and talking and sharing or oversharing or trying to figure out what maximizing midlife looks like and try all these different things. And even with coaching a lot of men and what I'm doing now, hearing so many different stories and what other guys are going through, like I take all that stuff to heart. It affects my moods too. What other guys are going through in their lives, in their marriages, with their kids, with their finances and businesses.
Yeah.
It's absolutely hard on my family.
So I'm gonna just zoom out for a quick second here and just see eh, if I can articulate this feeling that I have right now. So what I'm hearing, what I'm experiencing pre-show, during the show, we got to this over-indexing piece. And I was like, Greg, we got to talk about this because this is something very present for me right now in my life. And I'll give a little more context to that so that you and I can just banter on it so you understand a little bit about where I'm coming from. But this is it. Where I'm asking these questions curiously also because I can be super intense. I can be like, intensity is not my problem. Relaxing probably is, chilling out probably is. Finding more lighthearted, joyful things in my life is my challenge. Turning things off. But dude, if it's about getting shit done, that's never been a problem for me.
Yeah, sounds like we're wired very similarly.
Yeah.
I'll say to
Yeah.
my
And
wife,
it's hard on the family. Like, I'll come downstairs and, maybe at some point I've had enough of how maybe chaotic my house is. I'm a very organized person. I like things kind of put away, and my wife's a very free spirit. I don't think, by the way, I'm right and she's wrong. I don't think I'm better than her, but dude, my intensity will build, and then I'll go around like I'm a storm, cleaning up, throwing things, and that's hard to even witness. Like people are like, get out of his way because he's in, a mode.
We are very wired very similarly like
Yeah.
that. My wife is similar to that too. She's, more carefree, and she'll cook and things will be all over the kitchen. And I'm like, wow, that's a lot of dishes to do. Or these things why can't we just put it back over here? One of the reasons I was up, I think this morning, was thinking about the trips that we have ahead, which are all great and I'm looking forward to them. But in order for me to be present and committed to my family for those trips, I have to get a lot of, like, I feel like I got to get a
Absolutely.
lot of shit done.
Yep.
Okay. So that I can clear the schedule and clear the plate and be present. And that's a different type of pressure,
Yep.
both before and in the middle of it, and then coming out of it. So what do the next 2, 3, 4, 6 weeks look like?
Yeah. Where are you going, by the way?
So we are going to New York next weekend for a long weekend with my younger son, who's really into fashion and design and the music industry and everything. And he wants to do some shopping and some
Cool.
there, and looking at colleges as well. Then we got to visit my mother in Palm Beach the following weekend. So the four of us will be there, and we haven't seen her in a while. And then my older son and I are driving back to Boulder. He goes to college at CU. So I'm going to move him out of one apartment into another apartment, and he is turning 21. So all of us will be out there
Wow,
for
man.
a week celebrating with him. So we got a lot on the plate that's
That's
upcoming,
exciting.
and you can feel it. Like, it's all good,
Yeah.
but you can feel like, how do we make the most of all these experiences, and
Yep.
how do I set the table for how I want to be
Yep.
during all
Yeah.
this?
It's a lot, man. It's a lot. I tip my hat to you and recognize, and it's a different type of full and busy and a lot of different, it's a different uh what's the word, flavor of being a father from what it's like when you have a 1 and a 3-year-old and you're like trying to keep everybody alive, or a 5 and a 7-year-old. Like, you're in this season of life, which is really cool, but I still hear committed. I still hear showing up. I still hear a man looking to be at his best for his family. So I want to honor you for
Family is
that, man.
first, and it's your motto. It's your whole mantra, and your premise, which I love, and mine too. I think all of the stages are incredible. Like, I
Yes.
loved it when they were infants, and 1 and 3 and 5. I can't think of a stage that we went through with our boys that I didn't think was an incredible stage, and opportunity to be curious and to learn and to figure things out and along the way. And now that my boys are young men, if you were 20 and 17, they're about to be 21 and 18, both within a few weeks of one another. This stage is amazing. Now, there's some bittersweet aspects of it.
Of
And I
course.
look at one of the stats that says, I think it says you'll have spent 90% of the time you're ever going to spend with your kids
Tim Urban wrote about that, yeah, in the tail
until
end.
they're, I think
Yep.
it's 17 or something like that. And then beyond 17,
Mm-hmm.
you're like down to 10%. And we talk about this a lot. And I'm all over my boys on this, about we are going to be on the other side of that statistic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, look, guys, because I lost my dad young. I was 17 when my dad passed away.
Right.
So it's super important to me, and I hope to them too. I'm trying to see both sides. I'm trying to give them what I didn't have, and I'm trying not to overdo that, also. And I also, want them. I'm trying to give them what I didn't have for me, and I'm also trying to give them what I didn't have for them. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Big time. Um, all right, so let's continue on this path of over indexing. I want to stay here because it's so important. A couple of things I want to share. One is 3 weeks ago, I'm at dinner with some friends, some really good friends, and we're laughing about the fact that, is it possible for us to be doing too much work? This whole awakening, being more conscious, like, can I just go back to ignorance is bliss? Like, I mean, I think about some of the joy of when I didn't have so much awareness around my blind spots and past trauma that I'm not looking to dig up, and and we were laughing about starting a publishing company and putting out books that preach about, how to numb yourself and avoid the work. But I think there was this there was a release happening in the group because we've all been holding on tightly to growth and digging in. Like our conversations as couples at dinners are usually very intense conversations. The work that we're doing, what's showing up in counseling, we're all really honest with each other in these conversations. But for a lot of us, it feels like these last couple of years, we've been in intense arguments, fights, debates, because we're digging, because we're all in counseling, because we're all talking about it, because we're all facing the things that I used to just blow off, have a glass of wine, be like, we're all different people, and then just go about my day. I can see there being some benefit to some of that. But when I tried to dig in, it became challenging. And we were also talking about, when does a relationship just need rest? When do you not need to do counseling? When do you not need to talk about it? But you actually just need to have fun. You need to not do the work. Well, of course, just like lifting weights, I mean, you can't always be stressing and straining the muscle. You have to give some time for recovery. I think in relationships and life, it's the same way. I'm not necessarily great at the recovery, the letting go, the ease, the just, but that's where we are. We're in this discussion as friends right now about how to find the right amount of work and how to find the right amount of just let it go for a little while. And right now in my marriage, I'm coming out of a season where the last 3 or 4 months, maybe even longer, I mean, it's always been challenging for me. I've been very open about that, talking about it on the podcast for years. But these last 3 months were extra intense. Like, I don't even want to start talking about how intense it was. Just level 10 intense. And now I'm leaning into just joy, right? Just giving it a break, not digging something new up, but taking a walk and breathing and just holding hands, remembering what's great about your partner, and staying there. So, do you have any thoughts that you have on how you attune your body and your mind to know when to lean in and when to lean out, and maybe even practical examples of how this has shown up in your marriage or work or with your children or any other area?
I think it's so great what you just shared, and I think it's incredibly timely, right now, because I think there has been this shift from not for men not talking about things, not really doing the counseling or the therapy. This whole topic of masculinity, positive masculinity, toxic masculinity, what is masculinity? I think there's been a foundational shift the last few years to going from not talking about things or being stoic in this to now we all have to be part of a group, a mastermind, be in counseling, therapy, sit in a circle, get vulnerable, cry, pass a talking stick around. Like, if you're not quote unquote doing all the work, then you're not doing the work, and you're not truly being the best man you can possibly be. And again, I think that creates a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety and a lot of discomfort for a lot of men, myself included. I believe it comes down to giving yourself what you need and understanding what you need. And that might take a lot of testing and retesting, trial and error, different types of things. Some guys might need more intensity. Some guys might need less intensity. Some may need to talk more. Some might be much better going for that walk by themselves. Some do better in therapy. Some do better with a coach. Some need to go to a Navy SEAL activation weekend, and others need to, again, sit by the fire, or meditate or do yoga. I think, one, it's all available now, which is wonderful. I don't think any are right or wrong. I think it comes down to, again, what is right for you. And I start to follow a couple of principles there, things that I do for myself. One, I have knowing what's important is what's most important. I consider that rule number one kind of in my operating system. What's most important to me? What are my highest priorities? And do I know clearly what they are? And how can I focus on them? Two, if you don't know where you're going, you're never going to get there. So what is my destination? How am I going to best get there? So therefore, what do I need? What do I need to work out? What do I need to put on my body? What do I need to put in my body? What type of counseling, therapy, talking, non-talking, whatever it might be, what do I need? We touched on this before. A lot of options and noise and everything out there. Aggregate from what's out there, curate down to what works for you, eliminate what doesn't. I quit therapy a few months ago, towards the beginning of the year. It was not working for me. It was like pushing for trauma, pushing for problems.
Right.
I would go in feeling pretty good about myself and where I'm at, but I don't need to unpack everything. I've done a pretty good job of putting some things away. They're fine on the shelf. And it was like being poked and prodded and feeling like I needed to do this kind of work or this kind of depth or searching for a breakthrough. I was finding myself, I was miserable.
Dude, I have thought the same thing, Greg, about this show, where as the leader of the front row dads, I'm like, maybe I should go fuck something up in my marriage so that I can like have a problem and then talk about how I solved it. Like, I'm not saying I consciously did it, but I wonder if there's a piece of me underneath the surface that's like, if I'm not finding problems, I'm not growing as a man. If I'm not
And I
digging
think
some
that
shit
is,
up,
yep.
if I'm not proving that in the last 6 months I overcame the darkest moment of my life to the best moment of my life, then I'm not doing my work as a leader. But
No,
I think
the
sometimes then I'm
message
just
is
digging
it's
shit
okay.
up.
It's okay to be okay.
It's
You know what
okay
I
to
mean?
be okay. That's
It's
a
okay to
huge
be
piece.
okay.
Yeah.
It is. And I'm not telling you that I'm okay or that I'm perfect by any stretch of the imagination. But what I am saying is, in my experience, I don't feel I need to dig everything up. I don't feel like I need to be looking for problems or dramas, or I need to have some deep, dark story to tell all the time, or in order for me to have transformed or to reinvent or to release, like that it has to be these grand things. These were a series of little changes, little tweaks, little things that have made big differences in my life. The reduction of alcohol that has led to no alcohol were just lifestyle changes over a period of days, weeks, months, years. Going down to 3 personal and 3 professional things per day was just a series of choices in each day. Doing way too much to doing not enough, to figuring out what kind of harmony looked like in my life portfolio, to figuring out how I eat. 80-20. I don't want to get hit by a bus tomorrow, Jon, and not have had a cheeseburger in 2 years. Doesn't sound like a whole lot of fun.
Yeah.
I don't need to compete every day and PR every day in my workouts. I don't need to be the wealthiest guy, the most money out there. Like, how do we define these things and set standards for ourselves that feel right?
Yeah.
Those are the things that have made the biggest difference for me. Now, I've tried a lot. And one thing that I really, again, I enjoy doing, and this is a big part of what I want to continue to do, even with Midlife Male, is showcase experiences, options, possibilities, and probabilities of ways of doing things for men out there so that guys can choose for themselves. So I'll put myself in a lot of these positions and go, nope, never again. Or, oh yeah, that was really good. Like, I can lean into this and do a little bit more of this and share those and hear from other guys. Because what I really think it comes down to is how we develop our own personal operating systems, how we develop our own roadmaps, and I call the midlife action plan, which really is call it anything you want, call it a maximized action plan, whatever age or stage or even gender you're at. How do we apply these tools, these rules, and ways of living to create something that works really, really well for us? And I think you're absolutely right. I think it has swung way too far
Yeah.
in thinking that we have to do all of this deep work, if you will. And if you're not doing it and you're not reading about it and listening to all these podcasts and joining all these groups and spending all this money and time on retreats, and then you're not doing enough. And I just don't see it that way.
Yep. Yeah, it's a really good point, and I'm glad that we're digging into it, man. I like I said, when you brought it up earlier, I was like, yes, this is it, man. This is the conversation I want to have.
You said
Um,
joy, not to cut you off.
yeah,
Fun is one of my F's.
yeah,
Like, little things like fashion and fun are 2 of my 6 F's. Like, I actually care about those things. One, if it's not fun, then I'm done. I don't want to do things that are not fun.
yeah,
Fun is work. Figuring out what's really fun for you out there and having fun and allowing yourself to have fun and getting up from your desk and having fun, whether that's with your family, like what I do alone, what I do with my wife, what I do with my kids, what they all do. How can we have a lot of fun and then talk about that? Fashion, like I like style and those kinds of things, and it's a confidence booster. Like use whatever lands with you.
Dude, can I give you okay. First of all, I was in Joshua Tree with my 9-year-old. We were having a one-to-one trip. I was scouting out some locations for Front Row Dads events. There's a place out there called Auto Camp near Joshua Tree, which was
Okay.
legit. Really awesome. And there's a store I stumbled upon called Industry of All Nations. They're not my sponsor. I get no kickback if you go shop there, but man, their stuff is awesome. I absolutely love it. So check it out, Industry of All Nations. If you happen to buy some or sport some, tag Front Row Dads, man. I'd love to see it for all the guys out there listening. But it's killer stuff. Their story is amazing, by the way. But their company story is amazing.
Well, that's the kind of, again, I'm into that kind of stuff too.
Yeah.
Like the stories behind brands, behind products, things that are out there. That's the stuff that interests me and captivates me. It tends to
Yeah.
be a lot of what I read about, what I
Yeah.
like to look at in all of these different
Yeah.
areas. Like people that, again, are just finding things that they enjoy doing in life and doing them really well. And that quality matters, and that how they're doing things.
Yeah.
Those things that stuff brings me joy. That stuff is fun to me and makes me smile.
Big time. Yeah. Well, if you check them out, let me know. I want to hear what you
I'll
think.
check it out when I'm done with this for sure, because that's the kind of stuff that I like to take. Like, what did I learn on this? I wrote down Soham and the Ayurveda. I wrote down
Yeah.
Auto Camp, Joshua Tree,
Yeah.
Industry Nation, and that'll be my late afternoon.
Yeah. I want to share with you in the spirit of what you were just saying about checking in, knowing what you need, making decisions. We were 17 men. This is 4 weeks ago. We are in outside of Vail, Colorado. I just posted some pictures about this on my Instagram, and I was telling the story about, hey, these guys all got together. The goal was for us to summit a 14er. And
Mm.
what ended up happening was a couple of the guys who were pretty experienced hikers ended up getting altitude sickness. Our hut was at about 11,000-ish feet, and they got altitude sickness. I ended up taking them off the mountain down into Denver to recuperate. Half of the group ended up staying at the hut and doing a local hike and a little bit more of a rest and rejuvenation, still in nature, sauna, etc. And then another third of the group woke up at 2 a.m. and went for the summit of this 14er. And it was a pretty extensive, like they have to snowshoe off the mountain, 2 hours down to the cars. They have to drive an hour. They have to get to the base. They have to then hike for another 6 hours or whatever to the summit, come off the mountain, back to the car, drive back, and then 2 hours snowshoe back to the hut. That was their adventure. So it was a very long day. And I remember there was a couple of guys that needed at this season of their life to push themselves and see what they were made of physically. They needed to wake up at 2 a.m., get their asses kicked, and they needed that for their spirit, right? And they went after it, and it was awesome. And they had stories to tell. There was another guy there that he told us, it was in his words, my ego of the last 10 or 20 years would have never let me not go on that summit adventure. My ego would have been like, you pussy, like get out there. And he goes, but my more mature self is like, what I really need is rest right now. I really need a day of like a 2 hour hike, a 3 hour hike. I need a sauna. I need to care for myself. And so that was a lesson for that guy, was not going on the summit. That was the hardest thing for him, was saying no. And then for the other guys, the two guys that I took off the mountain, that was the most difficult perhaps, because they had to like really tend to themselves and say, I'm going to go off the mountain and rest and recover. And these are two wildly successful guys, again, who have no problem getting shit done. But that was their lesson. How do I descend to recover so that I can ascend on another day? And it was just beautiful to see the three different groups and how they approached that exact situation.
Mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, all the reactions are different.
Yeah.
And what does success look like for any one of those groups in the experience? And maybe there were guys that went on that to begin with saying, look, I would like to finish, or I hope I finish, but if I only get to 10,000 feet, like that's the first time I've even climbed to 10,000.
Right.
You know, if I feel good, I can go from 10 to maybe 12 or 13 or 14. There are others, like you've got to give yourself what you need. And I said ego plays a big role in this. Preparation, what's going on in your life in every other area. You know, are you firing on all cylinders at home with your wife and your kids, or are you showing up again like coming off a big knockdown, drag out fight, you know, and it's been an intense, you know, last few months, and that depletes your energy. And then you throw altitude and a giant mountain into this, and you start stacking. Like you talk about intensity, you know, that's there. You know, again, too much intensity blows you out.
Yeah.
Just like too little, meaning like if you're sedentary, you're not doing enough. Well, here comes the big challenge. You're not ready for it. But also, if you are so overtrained and you're like so burnt out going into the big event, you're not going to perform well. It's like what my trainer who works with a lot of athletes, it's like, this is not about winning the workout in the gym. They have to perform on the field. That's where they get paid. We kill them in here, if we hurt them in here, if we're not being smart, they get injured out there, or they don't perform. Like you got to know what success looks like
Definitely.
and where it is. You know, I've done this event the last couple of years. Speaking of hiking, it's called 29029.
Oh
It's
yeah, with
yeah,
Itzler. Yeah.
it's Itzler's event, and you know you climb the equivalent of Mount Everest over the course of 36 hours.
Yeah.
And
It's
one of the
no
things
joke.
that it's no joke, but one of the things that I really like about the event is that it is not a competition.
Yeah.
That you have everyone has 36 hours to complete the event. You don't get anything different. They don't even like keep your like. There's no leaderboard of time or anything. It's either you
Yeah.
finish or you don't finish under the time cap. And I think the completion rate is only about 73, 74%, if I'm getting that right. And the reason being, not so much that it is so hard that people couldn't complete it. It's definitely a challenge. There's no doubt about it. It's hard. But it's that there is a portion of the individuals that show up to take on this event that know they are not going to finish when they get there. And that's
Mm.
not what success looks like for them.
Mm.
Could be an individual who's lost 100 pounds and this is the first, and they want to climb 2 legs of this.
Mm.
Could be a grandma who I met last year who was climbing with her daughter and her granddaughter. She's not going to finish this thing at 84,
Yeah.
but just to be on the mountain. So again, success looks different for everybody in all of
Yeah.
these types of things.
Dude, and my buddy Brad Weimert, by the way, who did that event a few years ago, maybe 4 years ago, and he did it twice. So the the distance that that Itzler, you know, asks of people, he did it twice.
At the same event,
Yeah, he did
like
it
in the
within the
same
time
36
frame.
hours, he did it twice.
He did it twice.
That's exceptional.
The altitude climb ×2, he successfully did, but before the time was up.
Wow, he must have been moving.
Dude,
I mean,
he's a beast.
absolutely, absolutely moving.
He's a beast.
It is,
Yeah.
yeah. If you can do that, if you can take the same 36 hours and do it twice,
But like you said, but he, you know, but he would
I
also,
defer. You're more man than I am.
dude, he would also tell you that that is not sustainable for him. You know, that the way his body is built and the wear and tear, those things are not sustainable. So
I'll give
anyway,
you an example. The first year I did it, okay, just to give you an example.
yeah,
I did it with a buddy of mine. We were in Utah to do it, and we came out hot. We've saw like, look, we're intense guys. Everything's a competition. Go like boom, boom. We didn't sleep. We didn't enjoy ourselves. We just motored, and we finished pretty well. You know, like pretty fast overall. But we were both miserable.
yeah,
Both
yeah,
didn't enjoy. Didn't really meet any people. Didn't really take advantage of any of the amenities, any of the other things. It was a quote. It was a hard, miserable experience. And I came home and I said, I'm not going to do this again. And then I kind of got the bug. You know what? I do want to do this again. And I want to do it better. What did I learn?
mm,
Okay, from this experience that I spent all this money on and time. I went out there and I didn't really enjoy it. And I think I missed the point to what you just. The point was not to win. The point was not to break a time record. The point was not to be the most sleep deprived, okay, and crush this whole thing, because we ended up at the top. We were finished just waiting. waiting for like everyone else, lots of other people to finish, get their red hats, and then the banquet and all the other stuff was after. Year two, I go, I'm going to do this differently, and I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to go slow. I'm going to talk to people. I'm going to actually have lunch. They had a beautiful catered lunch. They have a recovery area. All what can I do? And I don't care if I finish, at 35:59. And it was a much, much more enjoyable
I
experience.
bet.
And where I
Yeah.
won, but where I won was I met amazing people.
Yeah.
I had a really good time. I didn't feel like death for the next 2 days, after. I looked better. I wasn't this inflated, puffy, over electrolyted, so much salt. I did everything differently.
Dude.
It was so much better.
Yes.
Winning looks different.
Do we
It,
talk with our guys about when they come to our live events? I tell them, I say, I've been to events in the past where I ask my, hey babe, I'm gonna go do this event, and I'm like, if I'm away from home, I'm gonna crush it. I'm gonna meet every person. I'm gonna stay up late. I'm gonna wake up early. I'm gonna push myself because I'm here and I'm gonna get my money's worth. I'm gonna get my time's worth out of this. And then I would show up back home a total piece of shit for my family. Like I gave everything 110% for the event, and I needed 2 days at home to recover. And I was telling everybody, leave me alone because I gave everything at this event
yep.
in it for my family, you know? And now I tell the guys, I go, look, when you come to an event, I really want you to go home energized. I want when you walk in, I want your wife to be like, man, who's this guy? Like focused, present, energized. Like, yes, you can go to another Front Row Dads event. It doesn't look like you've been on a drinking bender with your buddies for 3 days, golfing and telling stories about your wives. It looks like you went and it was healthy for you.
Well,
And
I
an
think that's
example of
what we
that would be
learned.
like we do the deep conversation. We do the deep dive. There are tears. There are men who are having massive breakthroughs. But we found that on the last night, we also just invite people to go have a good time. Like tell some jokes, guys. Like have a good time. There's a moment when you need to, not every conversation needs to go deep. Not every conversation has to be tell me about your deepest childhood trauma, but like tell some funny stories. Laugh. Like your success tonight looks like laughter. And they love that.
Absolutely. Look, it all has value. It really does. Just like, you try to go 0 to 100 overnight, you're going to blow the engine. You try to go
Yeah.
100 to 0, you're going to fry the brakes. Like we're back to again, like the middle, somewhere in the middle is typically right. If these are, I've learned this at certain events and experiences and stuff too, when every hour is scheduled.
Yep.
We're gonna hike, and then we're gonna do yoga, and then we're gonna do
Yep.
breath work, and then we're gonna cry, and then we're gonna do and then we're gonna, and you just are like you're looking for the breathing room. You know what I
Yep.
mean in there? And then I found sometimes when they schedule, look again, there's open time, or there's just like let the natural conversations and interaction happen. Let that stuff gestate on its own. And if you leave some of these things with one or two really good connections, great. We talked about the over indexing on some of this stuff too. There's always, oh, we're a family and we're brothers and we've done that, and it's kind of like, I have a family. I have brothers. Okay. We're here for 3 days. Like that's like here's what it's for. Like, let's put this in perspective. It's like sometimes the group text after a lot of these things. Day one after the event is over, the group text is 100% as contribute. Everybody's on it, excited, and they're all talking. You're still wearing all the swag. Like 2 days later, it's down to like 40%. 5 days later, it's down to like 20. Within like 2 weeks, like it's gone. People just get right back into their old lot. All the things they said they were going to leave and they were going to give up and they were going to stop doing. Like, here's the truth of it. It's really hard. We go back to our lives. We go back to our families. We go back to our jobs. Go back to all this stuff. And if you're doing a lot of this stuff again, a lot of this work, and you're part of this group or that group and read and all this other, it becomes a whole other fucking job to keep up with all these, to be all these things to all these people. And now we're there for everybody, including
Do you know Stu
us.
McLaren, by the way?
I don't.
Stu McLaren is, I would say, widely accepted as, if not the expert, an expert in community development, right? He does a lot of work in that space. I've heard him say, whether or not he would agree with this now, it's at one point it was said that people will leave communities not because there's not enough stuff, but because there's too much stuff. And I get that when you start to feel like, man, I'm not, uh, this is just adding so much more to my plate than it is helping me. There is a sweet spot of engagement and free, what you referred to the moment ago of just having like free time, letting things happen naturally. It's like this checklisted child concept, like the checklisted childhood. I think it was the woman who wrote the book Raising an Adult. I don't remember the author's name, but talked about, it's like a parent looking at their child going, they got to do this, they got to do this, they got to have this, and it's like, then what the child has is maybe some skills they've developed along with a high degree of anxiety. And at some point there's a benefit to a child just having free time.
Look, it's okay for your kids to be bored. I say that to my
Yeah.
kids a
Yeah.
lot too.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, if you're bored, that's on you. It's fun. It's okay for you to be bored.
There's an overscheduled
Yes,
childhood here as well, that
absolutely.
somebody should be tentative to.
Well, I think I think one of the things to point out is just like anything, make a decision. Make a decision. Look from what the choices are that are out there. Choose something that is good for you, and then you got to pick a horse at a certain time. Meaning, like, I can't follow 5 workout programs at the same time. They could be competing with you. Like, I'm overtrained, I'm overdoing it. None of them are wrong, like we've talked about on a number of subjects. But listen, I'll take 5 of the top trainers in the world. Every one of them offers a program. What are my goals for fitness? I want to be 175 pounds. I want to be around 10% body fat. I want to be uninjured, able to do pretty much whatever I want to do and look pretty good naked. Who can get me there? Like a million guys can get me there if I follow their programs. So I take a few that I think are interesting from a couple of guys that I think are interesting. They're relatable to me. I'm 52. I'd like a trainer who's a little bit older, who's got a little bit more experience, not some 20-year-old who's trying to beat me up. And I take a look at them and I pick a program and then I go and follow it. And that's going to work for 99% of the guys out there. I'm not training for anything more specific than life. I think it's similar with a lot of these groups, books, podcasts, other things. We end up with paralysis by analysis because there's so many, or we
Yeah.
overschedule, overjoin. And you know what? If this one is right, pick one. Quite frankly, pick one and be all in. And if you find that it doesn't work for you, then you can change it to another one. I think it's when we start to overstack, all these things and
Yep.
they conflict and it's in every area. I'm talking about it with optimization right now too. It seems like all the advice that you're hearing, and you got to get your blood work done, you got to get the right supplementation, and you got to do this. Well, how do you choose between this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one? How do any of them differentiate? And if you get your blood work done by 5 different companies and you get 5 different results and you get 5 different nurse practitioners or
You're
doctors
talking
to
about
look
my
at,
life right now,
yeah,
Greg.
and you're gonna be like, hey, this is, who do I listen to? Who do I
You're talking about my
trust?
life.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
listen, I do it for a few reasons too. Like again, how do we give people options and choices? If you're like whether or not, but here's how often you should do this, and here's how but you got to again pick one. You can't
You
be
do.
subscribed to
Yeah.
4 different
1,000%.
optimization companies and
I'm glad, by the way, that I've interviewed different people. I'm happy that I've seen various perspectives, and I know that I need to just make a decision at some point, because if I try to follow five, that doesn't work for me. But I'm happy that I did some comparison. But
well, I think that's
you're
it.
literally talking about my life. I'm not even joking. I have 5 doctors right now that I've been working with because I've been dealing with this iron issue for the last 8 years. Pretty serious inflammation in my body. And I'm talking to, and I'm also amazed at how one person is very different than another person.
So that's the thing. I completely agree with you in the aggregation aspect of it now, which is,
Yeah.
hey, I have some things that are going on. And I want to try to find again what is the best for me, what is going to solve this or resolve this, or what is sustainable and what is longevity based, and how am I going to do this? It's important. I believe in all that. So from the 5 that I'm going to interview, 3, whatever it is that I'm going to interview and go deep on, at the end of this aggregation, now I'm going into curation. I'm going to pick the one that is right for me,
Yep.
and I'm going to eliminate the rest. Now, I
Yep.
was in the insurance industry for years. And as a broker working with 7 and 8 figure businesses across the country, I was always up against, if you will, the other top brokers in the category. And the whole premise there was also that, listen, in order for me to get hired, somebody has to get fired. You already got somebody. None of these 7 or 8 figure businesses were uninsured and they didn't have a broker. And there were other guys that are out there that were very, very good. So we always worked off of what we called the broker selection process, which was, hey, it's me and you, and here are 2 others, and I'll tell you who the other 2 best guys are, 3 guys are. But what you need to do, Mr. Client, to best serve yourself and to serve your businesses, you need to pick one of us. Otherwise, you've got everybody competing, trying to tell you their different story, their different strategy, and you're stuck in the middle trying to make a decision, and it is confusing and it is paralyzing, and you don't end up being best served. So what you do is you got to make the decision up front. Just like an athlete has 1 agent. He doesn't have 5 agents, and you talk to these 5 teams and you talk to these 5 teams. He has 1 agent.
Yep.
1 agent, 1 attorney, 1 accountant, when you have competing strategies, competing methodologies, and everyone's in your ear at the same time, it is incredibly confusing. And when you're confused, that's the opposite of having clarity. And if you want purpose, process, and ultimately payoff in your life, you have to have clarity. You have to have a plan. You have to know who's on your team, and you got to execute.
Totally. Greg, I know we're almost out of time, couple minutes left here, but I would love for you to talk about Midlife Male. And this would be my last question. You could take it for as long as you want. But you've got this book out. You've got the podcast. I said I listened to the one with Chip Conley. I thought that was great. And I know this is beautifully targeted at a specific type of person, of course, at a specific phase of their life. So can you talk to me about the book, the brand, what you're going to do with it, and the invite for guys to lean in and learn about your work?
Thank you. Sure. So the book was really the culmination of a 3-year process that I went on from 47 to 50. 47, I was the same age as when my father passed away. I was not in the greatest place. Conformity, complacency, redundancy, working for a big company, outside looking in, everything looked great. And I knew I needed to make some changes, and I didn't know how. So my big ego wouldn't allow me to really ask for help. So I started the podcast and figured, okay, bring a microphone. Now I'm obligated to ask the kind of questions that I'm too scared to ask myself to other guys about getting better. And I interviewed over that period, I interviewed over 200 of the highest performing middle-aged men in the world, various categories, and took what I had learned from them and applied it to how I was living my own life. And then I started writing about it every weekend, which became the newsletter. And the podcast and the newsletter ultimately became the book.
And that's still going on, by the way?
So it is. So 47 to 50 did that, and it blew up, if you will. It went from being a tree falling in the woods to thousands and thousands of people listening and ultimately
So cool.
reading when the book came out, which led me to start my coaching practice, which has taken me to where we are right now, that Midlife Male is really a lifestyle brand designed to help men maximize middle age and the brands and properties that want to reach us guys that are out there. So we are right on the cusp right now, and I don't know when this is going to air, where we're launching an all new website, a digital magazine, an all new season of the podcast. The guest level has gone through the roof to guys like Troy Aikman and Cameron Herold and Sunil Gupta and Gunnar Peterson and Don Saladino, guys that if you would have asked me years ago that I would have the opportunity to talk to, I'd have been like, you kidding me?
Yeah.
And
That's cool.
it's
Congratulations.
all about showcasing, and we got to get you on and showcasing what amazing and interesting guys are doing and saying, listen, if you're not familiar with Front Row Dads, or if you are, like, take a look at this, like, go into this. Maybe this is the right thing, for you. Helping guys make better decisions, giving them options, choices, and possibilities, and talking about the things that guys don't typically talk about: Botox, TRT, hair transplants, what we should do, what we shouldn't do, answering and talking about all these things, not to give advice, but rather to share experiences and to just open up their mindset about what is possible, so that aging cannot be something to fear, but can be something aspirational. So
Very
that's
cool.
that's what we're doing with Midlife Male. That's what gets me up in the morning. This is something that I'm fortunate that I get to do. It's not something that I have to do. And and I really enjoy it. And being able to steer guys or help show them in different directions. Go, you know, I did that. I tried that. Or yeah, John's an awesome dude, and what he's got going on with Front Row Dad, like you should be checking that out. That inspires me.
Mm. Greg, thank you so much, brother. Appreciate it. Midlife Male. Uh, check it out, guys. And also want to thank, I forgot to mention this earlier, but I think Jason Bronstad put us in touch, didn't he?
He did. Yeah, Jason from Malk put us in contact initially.
Yeah.
And I got to get Jason on and we got to get you on. And this is how these things perpetuate themselves. And man, we started here and I'll end here. Like, I'm just so grateful for that. So I'm deeply appreciative and thank you
Yeah.
for doing what you do and for really great
Thanks, Greg.
guys connecting other great guys. So
Yeah,
that's how we do it.
appreciate that so much. Yeah, Jason Braun said, by the way, when we ask around who is like the best front row dad example, a guy who's, you know, strong, he's kind, he's capable, he loves on people, he's a great leader. Just describe all the things that we appreciate about a front row dad. People are like Jason Bronstad, like that guy. He's just he's an incredible human. I get a chance, he lives here in Austin, and I get a chance to see him at local front row dad gatherings, and I watch him playing with kids in the pool and talking with the men in our group, or having, you know, he's just a great family man. He's a great presence. He's a man of integrity. And also I see on your show, by the way, some other people that Garen Jones, who's a really great friend of mine. He lives here in Austin. He's speaking at Front Row Dad Live in December, which is our event
Amazing.
here in Austin. You got some great dudes, man. I'm very excited to support your mission, and feel real grateful for our conversation today. I was excited
Likewise.
about it. Let's both sleep well, Greg. Let's sleep well tonight.
Absolutely. Hey, God, thank you so much. Anything I can do to continue to support you and what you're up to, I'm happy to, and I appreciate you having me here today.
Thanks, man. Greg, one time, what's the website?
Midlifemale.com. And you can find me on Instagram as well at Greg Scheinman. I'm not hard to find. And that's it. Greg Scheinman and Midlife Male.
Thanks, brother. Take care.
You got it. Take care.